Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Clueless Capitalist, where we discover interesting startups, interview founders, and help you become less clueless with angel investing. My name is Razi.
And my name's Osman, and welcome to the Clueless Capitalists.
In this episode, we are going to be looking at Fullfily. Fullfily is India's fastest growing tech enabled full stack EV as a service and delivery as a service platform. They provide intra-city delivery solutions using electric vehicles for businesses. Fullfily is also part of cohort 8 at Accelerating Asia, and joining us is the founder and CEO of Fullfily, Ashok. Welcome to the episode, Ashok.
Hi, Razi and Osman. Thanks for having me today.
So what we like to do is we want to go straight into your pitch deck, and then we'll go into questions afterward.
So let me get started. I am Ashok. I'm the founder and CEO at Fullfily. Fullfily, what are we? We are building eco-friendly last mile logistics. We don't just have a fleet of electric vehicles. The electric vehicles are a mix and match of electric scooters, electric tuk-tuks, and electric vans. We also do infrastructure, which includes fast charging, battery swapping, and service stations across geographies. And it's all backed by a fantastic cutting-edge technology solution. We work with marquee clients like Zomato, Delivery, Amazon, and Walmart own Flipkart. I'm sure you've heard of these brands. And we work with numerous SMBs. Why are we an essential feature and a tool? And why do they choose Fullfily versus the competitors? Compared to the industry average of 70% driver retention rate, Fullfily has a driver retention rate of 95%. What this does for brands, you get a reliable, you get a seamless, you get a flawless delivery system instead of having to replace it every single day. Rising fuel prices, absolutely something which is alarming and a no-brainer. Emissions are to be cut down by 60%. There is no negotiations on this. The Paris Convention recently held in March ensured that this is mandated out to all the companies and governments. And 40% lower last mile cost compared to legacy players and our competitors. Government mandates have made it absolutely essential to cut down on emissions by logistics, and brands are scampering to convert their fleets to electric fleets. We have 4 types of revenue. We have a fixed fleet order-based revenue, which is 60% right now. EV rentals, not for D2C, but we do it for blue-collar workers, and we do it for companies like Zomato. 20% of our revenue right now. Subscription-based delivery platform is an absolute game changer. It's just for the SMBs, growing segment, and that's another 10%. And we do on-demand deliveries as well, and that's another 10%, which we are focusing on. Our EV as a service ecosystem is completely full stack. What this means for our customers, you don't have to mix and match for your last mile logistics and for your green logistics. Fullfily is a one-stop shop. You don't have to go ahead with different parties and screw up your system. Our tech platform and our IoT is completely in-house and inbuilt, and it's cutting edge. We do charging stations, fast charging stations, and it's both captive and non-captive. We are happy to announce that we are getting into last mile connectivity for MRT commuters in India. We are going to use EV rickshaws and EV scooters and micro taxis, and this is being launched in the next quarter. It's a fantastic market opportunity that we're looking at. The market size is currently pegged at $30 billion and expected to grow 5x from now till the end of 2025. Very proud and happy to announce we closed July at 130K of monthly revenue. We are projected to grow 35 to 40% month on month, and we are going to be hitting $1 million of monthly recurring revenue by April 24. We've got the committed work orders from our existing clients to hit these numbers. Again, I'm Ashok, founder and CEO at Fullfily. I've got 9 years of experience. I've worked with NASDAQ listed brands like Make My Trip and Freshworks. I've been an out and out GTM guy, multiple President's Club awards in my portfolio. I'm joined by 3 co-founders. I've got a CTO, Prem, who's worked with McKinsey and Amazon. He's built my tech from scratch with a very minimal budget. I've got Balaji and Ranjit, out and out logistics guys. They've worked with marquee brands like Ninja Card, Delivery, and TVS. Ranjit has also sold his last startup successfully before COVID hit, so we are pretty good on that front. We are already backed by marquee investors like Accelerating Asia, SOSV, and TNI FMC. We are not a capital-intensive business. We've got strategic partners for that. We've got MBSI, Alt Mobility, and Auto Capital, and a few others working with us. We are currently raising a pre-series A of $5 million. For the pre-series A, we've already got commits for $1.5 million, and this gets us to 24 months of runway. We already raised a seed round of $1.5 million, and these are the milestones that we'd be looking at. We'd be looking to clock in multiple cities across India and scaling up to $40,000 per day. And if you'd like to be a part of this electric rocket ship, save the planet, and work on something special, I'd love to connect with you guys. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing, and really see this as something that's really dramatically going to change the way businesses operate. I mean, I've been looking at sustainability metrics for a long time, both in my previous job at British Telecom, and most of the companies that we're typically talking to have a sustainability meet, usually because they're either listed on the stock exchange in the US or in the UK, and people overlook this. People really overlook the requirements of businesses to reduce their carbon footprint, to be able to demonstrate that they are meeting key metrics around sustainability, and this is one of them. So I just wanted to bring that out because there's so many people and so many investors who will say, so what's driving this change? And it's not just the fact that there are more electric vehicles on the road today. Businesses have a real driver and demand because they have to report on these metrics in the stock market. So if they're operating in places like India and they have an option to use electric vehicles and to reduce their carbon footprint, they're going to take it. It's one of these things which is happening, and it's not just being driven for fluffy reasons. It's for very real hard metrics that they have to report to the stock market every year, and it's usually owned by the chief financial officer of an organization to report those metrics. So I just wanted to throw that out there right at the very beginning, because there's usually people that are really down on the whole electric vehicle, the electric infrastructure kind of ecosystem, and for obvious reasons, but they overlook the fact that this is being driven by the market. It's not just because people want to post on Instagram and Facebook and tell you how great they're doing. They actually have a real financial metric behind it as well.
I was going to ask, so you shared the team and your three co-founders. So one of the things I like to find out is like, how did you get started? Like, what's the origin story of Fullfily? Because from what you've shared, it seems that there's so many moving parts of this business that you need to set up the infrastructure, you need to get the vehicles, you need to get the clients. Seems like a lot of work. So I just wanted to know, what is the origin story?
So to start with, we know each other for the last, I'd say 13 years. So we have been through a lot on the personal front as well. So this has been something which has been absolutely close to our hearts. Earlier in our careers, we have all worked at SMBs. We have also seen the other side of things. The enterprise segment, of course, right, they've got things a bit easier than the SMBs, right? So this was a problem where we have always been neglected in terms of logistics when we are an SMB. And I've faced it personally as well. So when I sat with my colleagues and my present colleagues, my friends as well, I can term them as both, we decided that logistics was absolutely a problem that we'd like to solve by offering cutting edge logistics. At the same time, the larger problem again, right? Emissions. And I live in one of the most populated cities in India. So I don't want the next generation to, just go through whatever that we are going through as well, covered in smog and fog and all sort of pollutants. And you can see my skin ain't the best when I'm in India. So these are things that we see on a daily basis. we wanted to solve, we wanted to crack. My co-founders have the relevant experience for this. Like I mentioned, two of the co-founders, Ranjit and Balaji, have been in logistics throughout their careers. So we've got the expertise to do this, to pull this off successfully as well. Hunting for clients, we've been pretty fortunate about that. We have not had any sort of CAC till now, customer acquisition costs. Everything has been referrals, word of mouth, and we have been able to reach out to folks very high up in the band in a lot of the companies that we work with. And the CTO part as well, that got covered. So our team is very well equipped to handle our problem statement and our vision for the company. So blessed on that front.
I mean, that's one of the things that we like to see in these, whenever we speak to startups, is when we see a founding team that is so experienced and really has the relevant networks and the know-how to build this. It gives a lot of confidence to people who are considering to invest, because they're like, this team knows this space, they know the problem very well, they have people who can refer them and ways to enter to bring this to the market. So yeah, it's very inspiring, and we can see the numbers and the revenue that you have already generated so far.
Yeah, so you mentioned customer acquisition cost. Can you just go into a bit more detail about the key metrics that really matter to you as a business, and what are your North Star metrics?
Absolutely. First and foremost, of course, the biggest metric for us is our monthly revenue that we track. We have an internal target to hit 30% month on month. And ever since we started having a bit more capital to work with, we have been able to stretch that to 40% on a monthly basis. So that's a metric that which we are on top of right now. The second metric would be the number of delivery drivers that we have on our platform and the number of active vehicles. I'm not saying vehicles because for me, it's all about the uptime. So the biggest North Star metric after revenue would be the uptime of the vehicles, because both are intertwined with each other. So that's a target that we have. Currently, we have a target of 90% uptime for our vehicles. Third would be the availability of infrastructure, because without an infrastructure piece, my fleet would not be able to function. So this is another North Star metric. So the availability and uptime of the infrastructure is something which we are having a focus on for this financial year in particular as well. So these are a couple of key metrics which we work on a daily basis here.
Okay, so just let me understand why the uptime metric is really important. Is it because you own the infrastructure, you own the vehicles, or are you leasing them? How does that work?
Right. So we don't own any of these vehicles. We lease them. Essentially, what we do is we work with NBFCs, non-banking financial corporations, and we lease these vehicles. It can be either on an operating lease or on a comprehensive lease. We have a mix and match of both. Why we chose to go ahead with leasing again? Because it's less capital intensive. We don't want to be spending too much capital on procuring assets. We are more oriented towards having a technology piece and the infra as the core here. So essentially, the fleet would not be something which we would focus on, and it will take off our focus from the actual metrics that we want to target here at Fullfily.
Just for me to understand a little bit better, then, why is the 90% uptime of your fleet or utilization of your fleet important to you, or is it important to your customers? Let me understand that.
Because downtime would lead to loss of revenue. It will also lead to loss of drivers, because if the drivers that I have are not able to earn money because the vehicle is down, I'd be churning out drivers as well. If I have less vehicles, I'd not be able to meet the overwhelming demand that I have from my customers. So I have hardline metrics and I have hardline SLAs that I commit to my customers. So any sort of downtime would adversely impact me in my day-to-day operations. Uptime and downtime is absolutely critical for us to keep operating seamlessly.
How does this work with your delivery riders? How does that work with your ecosystem that you've created?
Right. So essentially, we are also creating an ecosystem for delivery drivers. What they do is they are onboarded onto Fullfily's platform seamlessly, again, without any sort of manual intervention. Everything starting from their background verification and their police checks and their entire onboarding process happens through our application. So we are tech oriented on that front. And what sets us apart compared to other players in the industry, we don't outsource any of these manpower functions, right? So we focus on quality as well. Sure, when we scale up to thousands and thousands more of delivery drivers, we might have to work with third-party vendors, but in the essence, right? So we believe in quality over quantity on our system, and that wins us a lot of deals. Delivery drivers, they enter our system, they pick out the type of vehicle that they're licensed to drive or they want to drive. It could be either a scooter or it could be an e-van, it could be a tuk-tuk as well. They pick out the shift timings that are most relevant for them, and they end up also choosing the kind of client that they want to work with. If I want to work with quick commerce, they'd be able to pick out and we'd be able to place them seamlessly with the quick commerce operations. If they want to work with pharmaceuticals, and they each type of each set of deliveries has its own nuances, right? So guys who work with quick commerce might not have as much of a heavy load as folks who work with us probably from the FMCG line, where you get heavy crates. So it completely depends on what the blue collar workers want as well, and that's customized based on their requirements. So this helps us to have better rider stickiness in the long run. We don't force them to work with a particular client. Instead, they are given the option to and choose the type of vehicle.
I mean, and that begins to make sense when you're talking about vehicle utilization, because an unfulfilled driver, I'm beginning to understand a little bit more about how this ecosystem works, where you're really trying to keep the meaningful employment for the driver. And if the vehicle utilization drops off, that means that the driver isn't really meaningfully employed. That's something that's quite significant. And I think me and Razi, we both had this conversation a number of times. One thing we really like about startups coming from places like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, is that they create meaningful employment in the domestic workforce. And it's really great to hear a founder actually talking about the drivers and the impact that your business has on them, rather than just talking about vehicle assets and utilization, but really trying to turn that into a conversation around the driver utilization, how busy they're going to be, and making sure that they're actually meaningfully employed while they're on shift.
Absolutely, thank you for that. So one more interesting fact here is we are, I think, one of the very few companies which provides full healthcare benefits to blue collar workers in emerging markets. Yeah, so like I mentioned, we're trying to build something holistic, not only for our customers, but the blue collar workers who are essentially dependent on us for their livelihood. So trying to build a safe and sustainable ecosystem for them and ensure that they are well taken care of.
Well, out of my own curiosity, like, how do you acquire these drivers right now?
We have an in-house team of specialist blue-collar recruiters. So we don't use consultants like other people, but we have our own team. So the screening and the overall quality of the folks that we bring in is comparatively higher versus the industry norm and average. So we take quality here very seriously. So it helps us to filter out a lot of issues that might arise in markets like India, right? So safety is a big concern. So we take all of that very seriously.
And which part of India is Fullfily operating in currently?
We are operating in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, the southern states. We are not live in Kerala, but that's work in progress. Why we chose to be operating in South, and not just scaling up to like a lot of newer markets up north, up west, and east. We want to have a better presence in our home markets. The market size is super lucrative and super huge compared to other countries, right? Like you're based in Singapore, so the market size versus what we have in India here and South Asia as a whole. So a state in India can have up to $1 billion to $2 billion of total addressable market for a company like Fullfily. We want to be the leaders in our home markets, and then constructively move up to other markets and conquer those territories as well. So instead of just firing on all cylinders and just shooting blanks, this is a thought process that we have here.
Yeah, it's good that you've mentioned the market sizing as well, because both when Razi and Mustafa, sometimes we see an equivalent startup in Singapore raising quite a lot of money for their domestic market, and we're left scratching our heads thinking, why has that got such a high valuation in comparison to a company in another country which has got a substantially bigger domestic market? And we see those kind of differences play out, which is good for people who are like us, where we're looking at frontier markets and we're looking at trying to come in where typical investor sentiment isn't really that mature enough yet. So we're quite happy to look into markets like India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, where the domestic population is significant. The domestic market is so large that when you're looking at a business and it's going to grow into something very, very big, very, very quickly. And that's just looking at your pitch deck. It tells me that you're definitely on that trajectory. In terms of your strategic partners that you mentioned as well, can you just tell me a little bit more about how those strategic partnerships work?
Yeah, absolutely. We have strategic partners to procure the fleet of electric vehicles for us, and for setting up the infrastructure as well. So, like I mentioned, we have an OPEX model. We don't have a capital intensive model. So we work with these strategic partners like MBSI, Alt Mobility, Auto Capital. Essentially, these are NBFCs. We work with them. We lease out the vehicles from them. And and whichever market that we enter to, we have an alliance with them for them to provide us vehicles from day one. So that's something which is very close knit as well. For the charging infrastructure, we work with companies like Kazam, which is a leading player in India. They help us to set up the charging grids, and the equipment is completely handled by them. So that's something which they have an expertise in, and we leverage that, and we essentially bundle that into our offering and have the full stack solution in place.
Maybe you can share with us what are some of the risks that you foresee when it comes to a business like yours?
The major risk that I foresee as a founder is technology and what we're using becoming obsolete in the ever-evolving world that we're in, right? So currently, the EV industry is seen as a viable solution, but 5 to 10 years down the line, I'm sure there'd be like maybe like hydrogen tech catching on if the safety concerns are ironed out, right? So how we have indemnified against becoming obsolete. We have not owned any of the assets. It's leased. If technology really evolves in the next 5 years to 10 years, and there's absolutely new technology coming in, we're not just stuck or hardbound to what we have right now, right? So we're not EV-based company, but we are more about green mobility solutions and bringing down carbon emissions for logistics. If that can be done using other solutions, and if it's viable, yeah, we'd be able to hop onto it. The other risk that I foresee would be the kind of the lack of infrastructure in India or other emerging markets, right? So you can flood the market with as many vehicles as you want, but at the forefront of my thoughts are always centered around safety and sustainability, right? So you don't want to see vehicles being charged or swapped in a haphazard manner. You don't want to see vehicles lying in the side of the roads after. That's a very common sight in emerging markets, especially in South Asia, right? So that's something which we are solving, which we identified as a risk. We have indemnified ourselves against it because we are consciously setting up safe and sustainable infrastructure to alleviate all these infra-related risks as well. Change in government policies, but that's a risk that I don't see until at least 2030. So we are good on that front.
What's going to happen in 2030? You brought it up, I may as well ask the question.
2030 is where the current targets which have been set out for the countries and the companies operating in these countries are supposed to be met. So any change, any drastic changes in policies, but I'm pretty confident and I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be any negative drop in carbon targets going forward, right? In fact, it's going to be increased, right? So governments are going to be more hard-bound to adhere to all these norms. But yeah, that's something that which we are always on the lookout for when it deals with policies and things beyond our control.
Yeah, and that reminds me of another question, and it's kind of related to this around government policy and stuff like that. When you're talking about the infrastructure that's being built out, is that being sourced in India, or is that actually being procured from places like Taiwan into India?
It's completely homogenized, it's localized. Everything is predominantly from India, except components and parts which are not domestically available. If it's domestically available, we tend to source it from the local suppliers and local market. So as localized and self-sustaining as possible.
All right, that's good. Yeah, and again, it goes back to this whole point about creating meaningful employment. The externalities of what you're doing are that you're creating additional industrial growth within India, which is really to be commended, because there's so many things that we see nowadays where, you know, governments will say that they're doing something, but actually it's just an outflow of cash, or the cash never actually ends up in the country, and therefore, you know, predicted job growth and employment doesn't happen. Whereas here, there's actually a real significant benefit both for your own company and for all the industrial support that you're getting within India itself. So I think that's great. For me, that just makes me happy. It's one of those kind of things where you like to see real meaningful employment, meaningful industrial growth, and a knowledge base that grows and is sustainable. Because in the short term and medium term, that's what you want, and then that just cascades through to a long-term sustainability metric as well.
I was curious to know about the number of vehicles that currently have that you currently using.
We have a fleet size of 1,100 vehicles right now. Just like our revenue, our fleet size is proportionally growing by 30 to 40% on a monthly basis. So 70% of our fleet currently is the scooters, or as we term it in South Asia, two-wheelers, right? The other 25% is electric auto rickshaws, or you call it tuk-tuk in Southeast Asia. And we have started piloting with electric vans. So that's work in progress. So yeah, so that's how much we have right now.
And
Right.
earlier you shared about plans to expand into, because you mentioned that you are mainly in the southern part of India and you're looking at expanding beyond. So maybe you could shed some light on the expansion plans that you have with Fullfily.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk to people who are based in the US or based in Southeast Asia, they want to know about our expansion plans. Do we have cross-border expansion plans? And straight off the bat, I tell them that the market size in India is going to keep us very busy for the next 3 to 5 years. So we have a lot of geography to be covered in India before venturing outside of India. But having said that, we have a couple of interesting opportunities from especially Bangladesh. We have a lot of synergies with a lot of Bangladeshi companies where we have been asked to enter the market maybe in the near future and work with them to be their cutting edge logistics partner. So that's something which we are keeping an eye out for. So hopefully we raise enough capital to expand to other geographies as well. That'll really boost us.
Because I was looking at Delhi and I was just doing a quick search on this. The government there has been very bullish on switching, I think 25% of all vehicles to EV by 2025. So earlier you mentioned about how policy is so important and policy change can impact the direction of where Fullfily goes. And if more government, like state governments like Delhi, decide to be so pro-EV, I think that's just going to be great for Fullfily. Is there something similar in Tamil Nadu, like where you are right now?
Yeah, in fact, all the state governments in India are actively supporting green mobility solutions. It's not just about the EVs, like I mentioned, but it's about really making a change and I would say reversing a lot of the effects of pollution that we are all facing. Logistics, of course, contributes to a very significant chunk of the pollution that we face, right? So in my home market of Tamil Nadu as well, the government here is very, very actively promoting green mobility solutions. So that's why they chose to invest with us as well. We've got one of the government-based VCs, government-backed VCs. It's an independent body, but it's backed by the government in Tamil Nadu. They chose to validate our company by investing with us, and they'd be a part of our future rounds as well.
You've talked about the large number of investors that you've got in one of the slides. Can you just walk us through how that cap table looks like at the moment?
Yeah, so we have got our previous rounds lead investors, the seed rounds lead investor. They're called TNI FMC for short. It's a pretty long name. So it's Tamil Nadu Infrastructure Fund Management Corporation, TNI FMC. So they were the lead investors for the last round. They were joined by SOSV's Orbit program. They were also joined by Accelerating Asia, a couple of leading angel investors from Singapore. We did race through another syndicate through AngelList. We had Let's Venture coming on the cap table as well. So we have also allocated a good chunk of ESOPs because we believe in nurturing talent and rewarding them, and especially in the current ecosystem where we are trying to actually make a change for our employees as well. So the cap table has these investors, and the ESOP allocation has been made for close to 10%.
And how much have you raised so far again? Just remind me, is it 3 million?
Yeah, no, we have raised $1.5 million USD. For our pre-series A, we already have commits for $1.5 million.
Okay, so the current round is your pre-series A and you've got the commits for 1.5 million.
That's correct.
Is that round closed or is it open?
It's very much open. Hoping to connect with more people. We are actively engaged in a lot of very interesting conversations with a couple of leading VCs. But yeah, would love to meet and talk to more people and have them on board with us on our rocket ship.
Okay, so when we talk about these types of rounds, normally as angel investors, when we come in, and I remember we had this conversation during demo day, right? And normally it's a smaller round that people are raising, and 1.5 million is quite significant. And as an angel investor, I might not have the capital to be able to come in as a minimum ticket on such a relatively large round. What's your minimum ticket size for this pre-series A?
Actually, Osman, now that you mention it, as part of our seed round, we have allocated, I think, a significant, I would say for an angel's ticket size, it's pretty significant, but we have got an allocation for a syndicate, which is being led by Alex Miller from Accelerating Asia. I mean, like, if folks like Razi and yourself, if you want to be a part of our journey, we'd be honored and happy to have you. There is still some allocation which has been given to Alex Miller because we love him and he's a fantastic mentor for us as well. So that's something which we would be happy to consider. And the minimum check size would be somewhere around like USD 50K. That's still there for the taking, but it's being filled pretty fast. So if folks want to back us, it's something which is, you've got to be pretty quick about it. So yeah. Good problem.
So we met a month ago, right?
Yeah, we met like a month ago. So one more interesting tidbit here is we are Accelerating Asia's first direct investment in an Indian entity. So that's again validation on how highly Accelerating Asia rates us, right? Yeah. So it didn't turn out to be a deal breaker for them. So that's something which we wanted to mention here as well. Yeah, so Alex is colleagues and associates want to invest with us as part of a syndicate. So that syndicate is still up for grabs. Folks can help Alex Miller for that.
But I like how within just 3 to 4 weeks, we were talking seed round and that is almost closed, and now we're talking about pre-series A. Things move really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what a rocket ship is. At the end of the day, it's about like moving pretty fast. If I want to scale up organically, I can still do that. I can make my unit economics work. We have very healthy unit economics, by the way. So we are building something which is sustainable, which is going to be there for the long run. We are building something for the next decade and a half, and we have fantastic plans for the company. So we need strong backing and strong capital for that. So that's why we are moving pretty fast on our fundraising rounds as well. We want to put a lot of fleet out there. A lot of beautiful infrastructure, safe and sustainable stuff, make a change again. So
just for the benefit of the people watching this particular show, what we're talking about is the minimum entry point for an angel investor. Some angel investors want to give like 5, 10, 15K, and that is quite significant for them as an individual. When you're looking at a round of 1.5 million, suddenly the ticket sizes have to be larger just to make the cap table work. You can't have like 100 people on the cap table because that quickly creates a real problem for future rounds and future investors, and maybe even just for the viability of the organization in Singapore. So those ticket sizes naturally have to go. What Ashok's actually mentioned here is that a typical solution to that problem is to run a syndicate, and a syndicate is where you can have a special purpose vehicle, which is a business in its own right, and people are investing in that business, which in itself invests in Fullfily. So Alex Miller from Accelerating Asia is running a syndicate, and that will show up as one entity on the cap table, Fullfily, and there could be 50, 100 people in that syndicate, all pooling their cash together and coming in as an investor in its own right. What's the benefit for an angel investor coming in is that you can see how big this business can go, and you want to be in on that ride, but the ticket size is too high. With a syndicate, you potentially are able to reduce your ticket size down to, let's say, a 5K, 10K, and still get in at a very early stage into a company like Fullfily. So yeah, we would mention that we're more than happy to do the introductions to Alex if you're interested in making an investment, and you can come in through the syndicate and come in through that route. And it's a perfectly viable and perfectly legal way to actually invest in an early stage startup. And come in at a ticket size which is manageable. We've talked about this before. Investors should only be investing what they can afford to lose. 50K can usually be a significant chunk of change for an individual, but if you can reduce that to 10 or 5, it becomes a much more manageable risk for everybody. So that's just benefits of the people watching. And yeah, we're more than happy to do those introductions to Alex to get that syndicate raised.
You shared the projections with us earlier.
Yeah.
Where do you see Fullfily in the next 3 to 5 years?
Where do I see Fullfily? I see Fullfily as a pan-India entity. And when I speak about being a pan-India entity, that's something which is absolutely massive. It's a massive market that we operate in here. I see us growing to a fleet size of up to 60 to 70,000 vehicles in the next 3 to 5 years. I see us saving hundreds and thousands, and if not millions of tons of emissions, right? And making a change in maybe hundreds and up to 100,000 people's gig workers' lives and sustenance, and growing to an ARR of up north of $100 million.
Very nice. I was waiting for the ARR number. So $100 million. What advice do you have for other startup founders?
Don't delay your decisions. You'd end up regretting a lot of things. If you want to start something, or if you want to start a new initiative, just do it. Do your research, but don't fret around too much and end up regretting delays. Act fast, move fast.
Act fast, move fast. Okay. I was going to ask another one, but I think you already covered a bit of this. I was going to ask, right, how do you see Fullfily impacting India in the next 5 years?
So we like I mentioned, we are trying to bring about a change not only for our customers, but gig workers, right? So we are creating a holistic environment for them. So we're trying to build a lot of livelihoods, right, of the blue collar segment. We want to uplift the blue collar segment. We want to bring in better earnings for them. We want to build a safe and sustainable ecosystem for them. We also want to bring down pollution in India and all the major cities. We want to penetrate a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 towns in India and build up a green mobility system for next generation in these towns. So that's our goal. That's our goal for India.
That's a very noble goal, because one of the things that I keep encountering is this report which has like 50 of the world's most polluted cities, and I think India has about 30 over cities in that list.
Yeah, so in the top 10 there are like 6. Yeah, that's a very frightening fact. So it's something which is like, we all see it, right? It's not like a problem which is on paper, right? It's a real problem. It's sitting right in front of us. There's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I think we're looking forward to seeing the impact that you make in bringing down, removing the Indian cities from that particular list.
Absolutely. That's a goal.
Just an anecdotal point. During the COVID lockdowns, we started to see pictures of how clear the air can be. Obviously, it had such a detrimental impact to the economy, but you could see the net benefit to the environment. And the only point I want to bring out is at least we've got a whole generation of people who know what the air could be in terms of clarity and breathability. It's now within living history. And it's great to be listening to a founder who's wanting to be part of enabling that, so that we can get back to that point without, killing the economy at the same time as well. It's a good thing to be doing, both in terms of the environmental impact and in terms of creating meaningful employment for people, which is great.
All right, then thank you for joining us for this episode, Ashok. So you've heard from Ashok and how he's building a very exciting EV startup in India with a great mission to not just reduce pollution levels, but also improve blue collar workers' livelihoods and environment there. We've seen how quickly Ashok has been raising his funds. We know that this is a rocket ship, but the good news is Alex's syndicate is still there. So for those of you who are interested, we will be putting mention of his syndicate and how to get in touch with him in the description below. Thank you for watching this, and please remember to subscribe, like, and comment. See you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.